You said you got shot like 12 times, right?
Huh?
You said you got shot 12 times, right?
13 to be exact.
Could you speak on that?
Oh, sure, sure,
Like,
sure, sure. Sure, okay. We were out there on the block like normally any other day. It was nighttime. And, where we were at, it was like a valley as to where it was like buildings up around us, but we were like down in the valley, like down in the cut. Like so somebody rode up on us and just they had a street sweeper and just start unloading. And another person had a 9mm. Whoever it was, two people who were shooting at us. One person had a street sweeper and one person had a 9mm. All right. When I got shot, I got blew through the fences, and I was laying on my back, and this dude named Fred grabbed me by my feet and dragged me up the steps into the hallway. And when I got to the hallway, the one dude that was standing out there with me, he was in the hallway too, but his whole fucking face, all of his whole face was blown off. He was dead as a motherfucker. He was dead as a motherfucker. And me and him, I'm looking at him with his face blown off, basically. So I went the fuck out, and when I came back to, the police was running in the building with their guns out, pointing the guns at us. We laying on the fucking ground. So they pointing the guns at us, and everybody trying to say, no, these are people that got shot. So they, hosted their guns. Ambulance comes. When the ambulance first comes, I go out like briefly, and I remember the lady, whoever that was in this ambulance, she was fucking beautiful. And I kept asking, I was like, because I seen this nigga face blown off, so I kept asking her, am I gonna die? And she was like, no, you're gonna be fine. She was holding my hand and shit. She was like, no, you're gonna be fine, in blood. Because I got shot in the back of my head, all in my face. I got shot in my shoulder. I got shot in my elbow. I got shot down by my groin. And I got shot in my chest right here. So I'm thinking I'm gonna die automatically. Like, it's no way you're gonna survive this shit, right? So, like I said, I went out a couple of times in the ambulance, and she was, every time I would come back to, she was holding my hand. I had the oxygen mask, all that shit on. So, make a long story short, I get to the hospital, and I stayed in the hospital for like 2 fucking weeks. They had to put a catheter in my private part because being as though I got shot in that area, they was trying to see if I had any bleeding because I couldn't urinate. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't use the bathroom, so they thought I had like a blockage or something. But come to find out, like I was all right down there. Everything was cool and nothing get hurt. But like, and they said the ones that's in my head were too delicate. Like, sometimes it's best just to leave them in there because if you fuck with it and it move, or it can make the situation worse. And the way it's in my head, it's enlarged in my fucking skull, so they would have to cut a piece of my skull out to even remove the shit. You know what I'm saying? So, you gotta weigh your options. But at the end of the day, I had a stroke a couple of years ago, and the stroke was worse than being shot to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it don't bother me or nothing. I don't think it fucked with me like that. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, though, man. So,
yeah,
but
that's crazy.
yeah.
That's crazy. Do you know any like crazy like trigger happy people?
Oh my god. All right, I'm gonna give you one good quick story. All right, I got a friend, right? When I was staying at the same shelter that I was telling you about, who happens to be my daughter's godfather. His name is Jamal, right? And he got a cousin who was from New Orleans, I'm not gonna mention his name. Anybody that know me and know him know who the fuck I'm talking about. He was from New Orleans, right? And I used to hear all these stories about this guy. Like, I used to hear all these fucking ruthless stories about this guy. And When I finally met him, everything that I heard, I saw to be true. And my first interaction, my first negative interaction, my personal first interaction with him was, all right, I was dealing with this girl, and I don't know for what reason me and her broke up or whatever. So he started dealing with the girl, and just one day we were cooking and shit. Me, him, and Jamal were cooking. This maniac and Jamal, me, this nigga, and Jamal were cooking. And somehow the girl name came up. And I was like, oh man, fuck that bitch. But not knowing that he's like really into this girl now. You know what I'm saying? He really feeling her and shit. So I'm like, man, fuck that bitch. So, like I said, we were in the kitchen. This motherfucker pulled out a machete. Machete. And he really tried to kill me. And if it wasn't for Jamal, I'm not gonna lie, if it wasn't for Jamal jumping in the middle of which was his blood cousin, me and Jamal are just like real close. We ain't no real family, but this is his blood cousin. So Jamal jumped in the middle of this shit and stopped him, right? And me, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, like this nigga gotta die. I don't give a fuck who you are. You gotta die. Straight, that's my mentality. So I'm going like about half a block down the street to the phone booth to make a phone call. Jamal come running out. He's like, nah, man. He's like, what the fuck? He knew what I was doing. He knew what I was doing. So he come running down the street. He like, man, what the fuck is you doing, man? Like, it's not like that. Like, you know how, and see, mind you, the guy was fucking, I didn't even know, on heroin. He was on heroin, right? And when he didn't get the heroin, it would throw him in a fucking psychotic state. He would really not be right. He would really be on a fucking killing spree type shit, right? If he didn't get it. But I didn't know that. I thought, I didn't know what he got high off of and none of that. So I didn't know that. But so when Jamal come running down the street, like, you know, what are you doing? And, you know, he grabbed me, grabbed a payphone on my hand. He like, man, nah, like, what the fuck is you about to do? And I'm like, man, this is crazy. This motherfucker just pulled a machete out on me. I don't care who, like, this your cousin or whatever, but I don't give a fuck. So, long story short, we kind of squashed it. Like, you know, we hugged it out. Because, you know, at the end of the day, after that, we had done so much fucked up shit together. So there's no way that we could have ever, like, went against each other. Like, I knew too much of his business. He knew too much about shit I did. You know, it was, that would have never, ever worked out. But another story about this guy, the same fucking lunatic. This motherfucker is literally a homicidal maniac. Okay, one day, he's uptown in Northwest D.C. in a certain part of town. He met a girl. So he decided to post up shop, which means he decided to try to sell him a little bit of coke. And the guys in the neighborhood was not having this shit. Now, mind you, he's a fucking homicidal maniac, right? But in D.C., you got homicidal maniacs every motherfucker. So he decided to post up shop. They catch him coming out of the building and lit his ass up with a 44 Magnum. Blew half of the back of his arm off, fucked his leg up, shot him in his chest, almost killed him. So when he coming out of the building, they shoot him up. He run to the cab, and he had like he said he had like $3,500 in his pocket, and ran to the cab driver and just threw the money in the car and said, man, please take me to Washington Hospital soon, or I'm gonna die. So the cab driver looking at the fucking money like, get in. So he jumped in the car. Cab driver taking him to Washington Hospital Center, drop him off, pull off. You know, he kept the money and everything, of course. But yeah, he ended up he made it and everything. The ironic part about that is, man, after he got out the hospital, he had to be relocated. We had to get him out of DC because either Either they was gonna kill him or he was gonna end up killing somebody. So his cousin got a spot out in New Carrollton, Maryland, a little hideout spot, and I was the one that literally nursed this motherfucker back to health. Literally, he couldn't walk. He couldn't do nothing. Only thing I ain't doing, I ain't wash you up. I ain't help you use the bathroom and shit like that. But like feeding him and shit like that. Like I literally nursed this motherfucker back to health. They tried to kill his motherfucking ass up there, man. Like yeah, you can't like DC not that type of city where you just can't. You can't come to DC like that. Like I don't care who you are. You know what I'm saying? Like you just gotta have a level of respect, and it's best if you know somebody. You know what I'm saying? It's best if you know somebody. And up here where we at right now, it's like we know family all through this motherfucker. We got family, and then just from living up here so many years ago and for so long, you know, you establish yourself, even if you're not necessarily a so-called street guy or whatever. You know, basically just mind your fucking business, man, and you'll make it in DC, man. But if you come up here with any bullshit, you gonna get your issue, man. Like, you gonna get your issue. You come up here with any bullshit, then you got a motherfucker right around that corner waiting for your ass. Believe that, man. Sure, okay. Well, at that particular time, I was 17 and heavily into the drug game as to where, like, I didn't sell drugs. I was like more like security, right? And in my neighborhood, we had a door where we could get out on top of the roof. And the way I learned how to shoot was with what was called a 30-06, which is a fucking sniper's rifle. And our job, because what they would do is they would come into our neighborhood, and let's say somebody pull up in the car, and you got like 5 working 50s in your hand, which is $250 worth of coke, which is not a lot of coke, but to a crackhead, it's a fucking field day. So when you put your hand in the car, all they got to do is smack your hand, and shit will fly in the car, and they just pull off. So our job was to stop that. Our job was to make sure that if you did that, you wouldn't get out the neighborhood. That was my first introduction to weapons, put it like that. That was my first introduction to weapons. I ain't know nothing about no guns, none of that type of shit. So after that, I learned that is like the first line of defense, in the sense that you almost uncertain to not get caught. If you properly know what the fuck you're doing, you ain't about to get caught, because you got so much time, nobody saw you, none of that shit, right? And then I learned about the knife. And ironically, after I learned about the knife is when I got locked up right after that. See, when you locked up, you don't got no fucking guns in jail. So you have to learn. And the first thing I did when I got in there, and it was somebody came to me and gave it to me because of like a word of mouth type thing. Like so and so on their way down here, make sure they all right, make sure they got a weapon. And that's what happened. As soon as I got in there, I got a fucking gun. I mean, that's what they call them, guns. But I got a knife before I even had my first meal in there. And that motherfucker was like a dagger type shit. Okay? And due to my charges when I got locked up, they had security mitts on my hand, and I had a card that I like around my neck that let them know that I'm high fucking security. Like anytime I move, I had to have two fucking COs with me, going to court, going to anywhere out of the fucking cell except for eating. When I go to chow hall, they let me out of all that shit, right? But if any type of movement in the jail, I had the mitts on my hand and I had the card around my neck to let them know that I'm hybrid.